First Contact's Last Mistake. The Meridian Alliance's grand flagship, Eternal Dawn hung suspended against the velvet backdrop of space, its crystalline spires catching starlight like frozen lightning. High Admiral Vexthor stood at the command center, his iridescent scales reflecting the soft blue glow of holographic displays. Before his vessel stretched the vastness of the Orion Arm, or as his people called it, the ancestral waters, and within it, an anomaly that should not exist. Magnification increase, Quadrant 7. He commanded, multiple eyes focusing on the strange vessel that had wandered into restricted space. The ship was small, almost embarrassingly so, with what appeared to be crude magnetic propulsion arrays and primitive armor plating. Its designation read UES Defiant in human script, though the translation matrix took several moments to process such simple markings. High Admiral, his second-in-command, Strategic Observer Lyra, approached with characteristic grace. Our preliminary scans indicate the vessel's technological level is at least 3 centuries behind our standard. They appear to be using fusion drives and titanium-based armor. Her voice carried the subtle harmonics of amusement. Vexthor's primary heart quickened with anticipation. It had been decades since the Meridian Alliance had encountered a new spacefaring species, and longer still since they'd had the pleasure of teaching one its place in the cosmic hierarchy. Open communications, he ordered. Let's see what brought these primitives so far from their home. The main viewport shimmered, resolving into an image of the human bridge. Their command center was utilitarian, lacking the crystalline aesthetics and bioorganic interfaces that marked truly advanced civilizations. At its center stood a human female, her dark uniform bearing minimal ornamentation. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth ship Defiant," she announced, her voice carrying unexpected authority. "We are conducting a diplomatic survey mission under Article 7 of the Galactic Commons Charter." Vexthor's scales rippled with barely contained mirth. "Captain Chen, I am High Admiral Vexthor of the Meridian Alliance Expeditionary Fleet. Your presence here violates several provisions of our sovereign space. More importantly, he allowed his bioluminescent patches to pulse with dominance patterns. Your vessel is woefully inadequate for deep space exploration. For your own safety, you should return to your home system." Chen's expression remained neutral, but something in her eyes, those strange, single-pupiled human eyes, caught Vexthor's attention. Not fear, as expected, but something else, something that made his secondary heart skip a beat. "Admiral, with respect, our charts show this as neutral space under the Commons Agreement. We have every right to be here, and we will continue our mission as planned." The bridge crew of the Eternal Dawn chittered with laughter. Vexthor himself allowed a low harmonic of amusement to escape his throat sacs. "Your charts, Captain, like your technology, are desperately outdated. The Meridian Alliance claimed this sector 3 stellar cycles ago. Now shall we demonstrate the consequences of your navigational error?" He gestured to his weapons officer, who began charging the ship's primary graviton lance, a weapon that could slice through planetary crusts. It was unnecessary force against such a primitive vessel, but examples had to be made. "Admiral," Chen's voice cut through the moment, sharp as monomolecular steel, "I strongly advise against hostile action. We have no wish for conflict, but we will defend ourselves if necessary." Defend. Vexthor's scales flushed with genuine entertainment. With what? Those primitive fusion torpedoes, those laughable point defense turrets. He turned to his tactical officer. "Scan their weapon systems. Let's see what they think will protect them from the might of the Meridian Alliance." The tactical officer worked his console for several moments before his movements became increasingly agitated. "High Admiral, our scans cannot penetrate their hull. There's some kind of interference pattern we've never encountered before." "Impossible," Vexthor snapped. "Increase power to the sensor arrays. Break through whatever primitive shielding they're using." As the Eternal Dawn's sensors probed deeper, The readings became increasingly erratic. Energy signatures that defied known physics. Material compositions that shouldn't exist. And something else, a growing sense that the small human vessel was not at all what it appeared to be. "This is your final warning, Admiral." Chen's voice had lost all pretense of diplomatic courtesy. "Withdraw your forces or face the consequences of your actions." Vexthor felt the first tremor of uncertainty crawl down his spine, quickly suppressed by centuries of ingrained superiority. "You dare threaten the Meridian Alliance? Your species was barely achieving powered flight when we were mastering quantum mechanics." "Perhaps," Chen replied, a slight smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "But necessity breeds innovation, Admiral. And humanity has had a lot of necessities." Before Vexthor could respond, his tactical officer's voice rose in alarm. "High Admiral, the human vessel, it's changing." The seemingly primitive hull of the Defiant began to shift, plates sliding and realigning like the scales of a living creature. What had appeared to be battle scars transformed into precisely arranged energy matrices. The fusion drive flickered and died, replaced by something that made their sensors shriek in protest. "What are you?" Vexthor whispered, all pretense of superiority evaporating like quantum foam. Captain Chen's smile remained unwavering. "We are humanity, Admiral, and you're about to learn why appearances can be deceiving." As the last words left her lips, the UES Defiant began its transformation from prey to predator, and the Meridian Alliance was about to learn a lesson about underestimating humanity that would be remembered for generations to come. The hidden edge. The transformation of the UES Defiant happened in seconds, but to High Admiral Vexthor, it felt like watching eons of technological evolution compressed into a single breath. The vessel's primitive hull plating rippled like liquid metal, revealing layers of technology that his sensors couldn't even classify. What had appeared to be standard propulsion vents now pulsed with an energy signature that made his scientific officer's instruments short out in protest. "Impossible," Strategic Observer Lyra whispered, her scales dulled with shock. "Their energy readings they're beyond our classification systems." The human vessel now bore little resemblance to its former appearance. Gone was the crude, utilitarian design, replaced by something that looked less like a ship and more like a predator ready to strike. Sections of the hull had become nearly transparent, revealing crystalline structures that seemed to bend light itself around them. "All ships, battle formations," Vexthor commanded, his voice carrying the first tremor of uncertainty in his long career. "Full power to defensive systems." The Meridian fleet, consisting of 12 of the most advanced warships in known space, moved to surround the single human vessel. Captain Chen's image still filled the main view screen, her composed demeanor a stark contrast to the chaos erupting on the Eternal Dawn's bridge. "Admiral," she said, almost gently, "I want you to understand something about humanity. We learned early in our development that the greatest advantage isn't showing strength, it's being underestimated." The Defiant's new configuration suddenly pulsed with energy, and every scanning system on the Eternal Dawn went dark. When they flickered back to life seconds later, Vexthor's heart nearly stopped. The human ship had somehow multiplied its mass by a factor of 10 without changing its physical size, a feat that violated every known law of physics. "Target their primary systems," Vexthor ordered, his voice rising with barely contained panic. "Full spread of graviton lances." The Meridian fleet responded instantly, 12 of the most powerful weapons ever created by their civilization unleashing their fury upon the Defiant. The combined energy could have cracked a small moon. But as the graviton beams reached the human vessel, something unprecedented happened. The attacks simply vanished. Not deflected, not absorbed. They ceased to exist meters from the Defiant's hull. Captain Chen's expression remained unchanged, but there was a hint of sadness in her eyes. "You still don't understand, do you, Admiral? Those weapons were obsolete to us centuries ago. We moved beyond graviton manipulation when we discovered how to alter the fundamental forces themselves. As if to demonstrate her point, the Defiant released a pulse of energy that rippled through space like a stone dropped in still water. Where it passed, the carefully coordinated formations of the Meridian fleet began to drift, their engines suddenly powerless. What have you done?" Vex Thor demanded, watching helplessly as his mighty fleet floated like dead leaves in a cosmic wind. "We've temporarily adjusted the strong nuclear force in your drive systems," Chen explained, as casually as if discussing the weather. "Don't worry, the effect is localized and temporary. Your crews are in no danger." Lyra's voice shook as she reported, "High Admiral, we're detecting technology signatures we've never seen before. Their hull, it appears to be integrating quantum fields directly into its structure. The power readings are beyond anything in our databases." "But your ship," Vex Thor protested, his worldview crumbling around him. "The primitive design, the outdated systems, adaptive camouflage," Chen replied. "One of our earlier innovations. We learned long ago that true power lies not in showing strength, but in controlling when and how it's revealed. The Defiant is what we call a Revelation-class vessel, designed specifically for first contact situations where we might encounter overconfident civilizations." The implications hit Vex Thor like a quantum torpedo. How many other human ships were out there, disguised as primitive vessels? How long had humanity possessed this level of technology? And most terrifyingly, what else were they capable of? As if reading his thoughts, Chen continued, "The Defiant carries what we call a Type 1 demonstration package. Would you like to see what Type 2 looks like?" Before Vex Thor could respond, space itself seemed to hiccup. Where there had been empty void behind the Defiant, 3 massive vessels shimmered into existence. Each one dwarfed his flagship, their designs so advanced they barely registered as solid matter to his sensors. "These are our actual diplomatic vessels," Chen explained. "The ones we use when subtlety is no longer required. Now, Admiral, shall we discuss the true boundaries of Meridian space, and perhaps update those outdated charts of yours?" For the first time in his long career, High Admiral Vex Thor of the mighty Meridian Alliance did something he never thought possible. He gave serious consideration to surrender. As he stared at the human vessels that had so completely shattered his understanding of the universe, he realized that this wasn't just a military defeat. It was a civilization-defining moment, one that would forever change how the Meridian Alliance viewed its place in the cosmos. And somewhere in the back of his mind, a terrible thought began to form. If this was what humanity showed to potential adversaries, what were they keeping hidden? Turning the tide. High Admiral Vex Thor's command center had fallen silent, the usual symphony of tactical updates and status reports replaced by the hollow sound of disbelief. The 3 massive human vessels loomed in his view screen like ancient leviathans, their very presence seeming to bend reality around them. His mighty fleet, the pride of the Meridian Alliance, drifted powerless in their shadow. "Your silence speaks volumes, Admiral," Captain Chen observed, her image still clear despite the technological chaos surrounding them. "Perhaps now would be a good time to discuss the true nature of humanity's place in the galaxy." Before Vex Thor could respond, his scientific officer, Delaran, burst onto the command deck. "High Admiral, you need to see this." The usually composed scientist's scales were flickering with agitation. "We've completed our analysis of the energy signatures from the human vessels. It's impossible." "I'm beginning to hate that word," Vex Thor muttered. "Show me." The holographic display flickered to life, showing readings that made no sense. The human ships weren't just manipulating energy. They were rewriting the laws of physics on a localized level. What had appeared to be weapon systems were actually devices that could alter the fundamental constants of the universe itself. "Fascinating," Chen commented, apparently able to see their readings. "Your analytical systems are more advanced than we expected. Most species can't even detect these interactions." Lyra, who had been silent since the appearance of the larger vessels, finally found her voice. How? How long has humanity possessed this level of technology? That's an interesting question, Chen replied, leaning back in her command chair. Tell me, how do you measure technological advancement? By the ability to destroy, to conquer, to impose one's will upon the universe. She gestured, and a new hologram appeared on both ships' bridges. We measure it by understanding. The hologram showed Earth, but not as it appeared now. It showed the planet's history, wars, pollution, near extinctions. But then it showed something else. The moment humanity looked into the abyss of its own destruction and chose a different path. 2 centuries ago, Chen continued, we faced a choice. Continue down the path of conquest and competition, or embrace a fundamental truth about the universe, that understanding is the highest form of power. As she spoke, one of the larger human vessels demonstrated this philosophy. It released what appeared to be a simple pulse of light. Where it touched the disabled Meridian ships, their systems began to restore themselves, but in ways that made them more efficient than before. We're not here to conquer, Admiral, Chen explained. We're not here to dominate or suppress. We're here to understand. And sometimes, understanding requires us to teach. Vexthor watched in amazement as his fleet's systems came back online, enhanced by whatever the humans had done. Why show us this? Why reveal such power? Because you needed to learn what we learned, that true strength lies not in the ability to destroy, but in the wisdom to know when not to. Chen's expression softened slightly. The Meridian Alliance has spent millennia building an empire based on technological superiority. But technology without wisdom is like a weapon without aim, dangerous to everyone, including its wielder. Suddenly, alerts blared across the Eternal Dawn's bridge. A massive fleet of Meridian warships had just emerged from hyperspace, the reinforcements Vexthor had secretly summoned when the confrontation began. Nearly 100 ships, the full might of the Meridian Alliance's third fleet, arrayed themselves around the human vessels. Fleet Admiral Zix, Vexthor's superior and one of the most decorated warriors in Meridian history, appeared on all command channels. In the name of the Eternal Alliance, you will surrender your vessels and technology, or face immediate destruction. Chen didn't even turn to look at the new threat. Instead, she fixed Vexthor with a steady gaze. Admiral, you've seen what one of our ships can do. You've witnessed just a fraction of our capabilities. Are you going to let pride and fear drag your civilization toward a confrontation it cannot win? Vexthor looked at the enhanced readings from his restored systems, at the impossible human vessels that defied understanding, and at the proud Meridian fleet that had no idea what they were truly facing. In that moment, he realized that this wasn't just about military power or technological superiority. This was about the future of his entire civilization. For the first time in recorded history, a Meridian High Admiral prepared to give an order that would shake the very foundations of their society. But before he could speak, the human vessels began to move, and the true demonstration of humanity's power was about to begin. The price of pride. Fleet Admiral Zix's arrival should have been a moment of triumph. The combined might of the Meridian Third Fleet filled the void with crystalline warships, their graviton lances charged and ready. Instead, High Admiral Vexthor felt only a creeping dread as he watched his superior prepare to make the same mistake he had. Your silence is taken as defiance, Zix announced, his voice carrying the weight of centuries of unquestioned dominance. You have 10 temporal units to surrender your vessels and technology. Captain Chen finally turned her attention to the new arrival, but her expression remained unchanged. Fleet Admiral, I would strongly encourage you to speak with High Admiral Vexthor before taking any aggressive action. I don't take suggestions from primitive species, Zix sneered. Vexthor's failure to handle this situation is precisely why I'm here. All ships, prepare tow. Enough. Chen's single word carried such authority that even Zix fell silent. Since you refuse to learn from your colleague's experience, perhaps a more direct demonstration is required. She made a small gesture, and the space around the human vessels began to change. Reality itself seemed to ripple as the three massive ships that had appeared earlier began to shift. Their surfaces flowed like liquid mercury, geometric patterns emerging and dissolving in mesmerizing sequences. But it was what happened next that made every Meridian officer watch in stunned silence. The ships began to divide. Like cells undergoing mitosis, each vessel split perfectly in two, then 4, then 8. Within moments, the human fleet matched the Meridian forces ship for ship. But they didn't stop there. The division continued until 2 human vessels surrounded each Meridian warship. "Impossible!" Zix roared. "No species has mastered matter replication on this scale." Matter replication. Chen's laugh was gentle but carried an edge of steel. "Fleet Admiral, these aren't copies. Each vessel is a fully autonomous unit that was always there, existing in what you might call parallel space-time configurations. We simply chose to make them visible." The scientific implications of her statement caused Delaran to faint outright, his scales turning pale before he hit the deck. Lyra's voice shook as she reported, "High Admiral, our sensors confirm. They're all real. All of them. The energy readings are identical to the originals." "Of course they are," Chen explained, as if teaching a fundamental concept to children. "Creating copies would be inefficient. We simply learn to exist in multiple states simultaneously. Your sensors are detecting them now because we're allowing the quantum wave functions to collapse into your observable reality." Zix's response was predictably militant. "All ships, open fire. Full spread, all weapons. Fleet Admiral, don't." Vexthor's warning came too late. The Meridian fleet unleashed its full arsenal. Graviton lances, quantum torpedoes, and plasma streams lit up space like an artificial nova. The result, however, was unlike anything in Meridian military history. Each human vessel simply absorbed the attacks. Not deflected, not blocked. Absorbed. Like water soaking into sand, every energy weapon, every projectile, every concentrated burst of destructive power vanished into the seemingly fluid hulls of the human ships. "An admirable display of coordination," Chen commented. "But let me show you something interesting about energy." She paused, letting her words hang in the void. "It can't be destroyed. It can only be transformed." The human vessels began to glow with the combined power they had absorbed. But instead of returning it as a weapon, they did something far more profound. The energy coursed through their hulls in intricate patterns, forming complex geometric shapes that stretched between ships like a vast, glowing web. "We call this the Enlightenment Protocol," Chen explained. "Watch carefully. This is what happens when you understand the true nature of reality." The web of energy suddenly expanded, enveloping the entire Meridian fleet in a soft, golden light. Every ship's systems began to transform. Weapons reconfigured themselves into advanced sensor arrays. Defensive barriers evolved into communication systems of unprecedented power. Engine cores shifted to operate on principles that Meridian scientists had only theorized about. What are you doing to our ships?" Zix demanded, but the anger in his voice had been replaced by awe. "We're showing you a better way," Chen replied. "Your weapons have become tools of understanding. Your barriers are now bridges of communication. Your engines now operate on principles that will allow you to explore further than you ever dreamed possible." She leaned forward in her chair. "This is humanity's true power, Fleet Admiral. Not destruction, but transformation. Not conquest, but elevation." The golden web continued its work, and with each passing moment, the Meridian fleet became something new, something that represented not the power to destroy, but the power to explore and understand. The price of pride had not been destruction, as so many civilizations might have chosen. Instead, it was enlightenment. And as Vexthor watched his fleet transform, he realized that humanity hadn't just defeated them. They had fulfilled the deepest promise of the Meridian Alliance's own ancient philosophies, ones that had been forgotten in their rush for dominance. The promise that true power lies not in the ability to take life, but in the wisdom to transform it. Humanity's message. The golden light faded from the transformed Meridian fleet, but its effects remained. Where once hung instruments of war, now floated vessels of discovery. The crystalline ships still retained their elegant forms, but they hummed with new purpose, one that even their own crews were just beginning to comprehend. Fleet Admiral Zix stood motionless on his bridge, staring at displays that showed capabilities he couldn't begin to understand. This technology, it's beyond anything in our historical records. Even the ancestral archives speak of nothing like this. That's because your ancestors, like most species, looked outward for advancement, Captain Chen explained, her image now appearing on every Meridian vessel simultaneously. Humanity chose to look inward. We discovered that the greatest frontiers weren't in space, but in understanding ourselves and the fundamental nature of consciousness itself. On the eternal dawn, High Admiral Vexthor watched as his scientific officer, Delaran, who had recovered from his earlier shock, worked feverishly at his transformed console. High Admiral, these readings, the humans haven't just given us new technology. They've given us a new understanding of reality itself. Elaborate, Vexthor commanded, his scientific curiosity overriding military protocol. Delaran's scales flickered with excitement as he explained. Their ships, their technology. It's all based on principles we never even conceived of. They're not just manipulating matter and energy. They're working with the fabric of consciousness itself. The barrier between observer and observed, between mind and matter. They've transcended it completely. Captain Chen nodded approvingly. Your scientist has remarkable insight. Admiral, humanity's great leap forward came when we realized that consciousness wasn't just an emergent property of complex systems. It was a fundamental force of the universe, as basic as gravity or electromagnetism. The human vessels began to shift again, but this time not to divide or attack. Instead, they created what appeared to be windows in space itself, portals through which the Meridian crews could see other places, other times, other possibilities. Look, Chen commanded gently. See what your civilization could become. Through these windows, the Meridian officers saw visions of their future, their worlds transformed not by conquest, but by understanding, their people united not by force but by wisdom, their technology advanced not through competition, but through consciousness itself. But why? Fleet Admiral Zix finally asked, his voice stripped of its earlier arrogance. Why show us this? Why transform our fleet instead of destroying it? Because destruction is easy, Admiral. Any species with sufficient technology can destroy. But transformation, true, fundamental transformation, that requires something more. Chen's expression softened. Humanity learned this lesson through near extinction. We stood at the brink of annihilation, our weapons pointed at our own hearts, before we understood that the path to advancement wasn't through domination of others, but through transcendence of our own limitations. As she spoke, the human vessels began a new transformation. Their surfaces became transparent, revealing internal structures that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Energy patterns flowed through them like blood through veins, but it wasn't mechanical energy. It was pure consciousness, shaped and directed with precision that defied comprehension. What you see now, Chen continued, is the true form of our ships. They're not machines as you understand them. They're extensions of consciousness itself, physical manifestations of humanity's collective understanding of the universe. We don't pilot them. We commune with them. We don't command them. We grow with them. Lyra, who had been analyzing the transformed Meridian systems, suddenly gasped. High Admiral, these new configurations, they're not just improvements to our existing technology. They're seeds. Seeds, Vexthor asked. Yes, Chen confirmed. Seeds of understanding, planted in the fertile ground of your civilization's consciousness. They will grow as you grow, evolve as you evolve. The technology we've given you isn't static. It's alive, in a very real sense, and it will help guide your species toward its own unique form of transcendence. The implications of this gift began to dawn on the Meridian leaders. This wasn't just a military defeat or a technological revolution. It was an invitation to join something far greater than their empire had ever dreamed of being. "And if we refuse this gift?" Zix asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. "You won't," Chen replied simply, "because now that you've seen the truth, you'll never be satisfied with anything less. That's humanity's real message to the galaxy. The universe is not a battlefield to be conquered, but a mystery to be explored together. And the greatest power isn't in weapons or shields or faster-than-light drives. It's in the ability to transform consciousness itself. A new understanding." The vast fleet hung suspended in space, transformed Meridian vessels alongside revealed human ships, all shimmering with newfound power and purpose. But it was in the command center of the Eternal Dawn where the true transformation was taking place, not in technology, but in understanding. High Admiral Vexthor stood before a holographic representation of the Meridian Alliance's territory, but he no longer saw borders and defensive lines. Instead, he saw connections, possibilities, and pathways to evolution that had been invisible mere hours ago. "Your civilization stands at a crossroads," Captain Chen said, her image now accompanied by streams of data that the enhanced Meridian systems could finally comprehend. "The choice you make here will echo through generations." Fleet Admiral Zix, who had remained silent since the transformation, finally spoke. "The Council of Elders will never accept this. Our entire society is built on an illusion," Chen interrupted gently. "The illusion that power flows from the barrel of a gun, that progress comes through dominance, that understanding can be achieved through force." She gestured, and the holographic display shifted to show the history of humanity's own journey. The Meridian leaders watched as Earth's past unfolded before them. The wars, the near extinctions, the moment of crisis that had brought humanity to the brink. But then they saw something else. The awakening, as humans called it. The moment when their species had collectively realized that consciousness itself was the key to unlocking the universe's deepest secrets. "We were like you once," Chen continued. "Proud, militant, convinced that the path to greatness lay in proving our superiority. But then we discovered something remarkable." The hologram shifted again, showing the quantum relationship between consciousness and reality. "We learned that the observer and the observed are not separate, that thought and matter are two expressions of the same fundamental force, that unity, not division, is the natural state of the universe." Delaran, who had been studying the new systems with increasing excitement, looked up from his console. "These principles, they're not just technological. They're universal," Chen finished for him. "The same laws that govern the dance of galaxies govern the thoughts in your minds. We didn't invent this technology. We discovered it. And now, so have you." Throughout the fleet, Meridian crews were discovering the truth of her words. The transformed ships responded not just to commands, but to intentions. The boundary between organic and mechanical, between controller and controlled, had dissolved into something entirely new. "But what happens now?" Vexthor asked, voicing the question that hung in every Meridian mind. "Our entire power structure, our way of life, will evolve," Chen answered. "Not through revolution or destruction, but through understanding. The seed we've planted today will grow at its own pace, guided by your civilization's unique consciousness." She smiled. "Did you think we chose this sector of space by accident?" The revelation hit Vexthor like a quantum pulse. You knew we would respond with force. You knew exactly how this would play out." "We knew you were ready," Chen corrected. "Ready to take the next step in your evolution. Ready to move beyond the limitations of empire and into something far greater." She gestured, and the human ships began to shift once more, but this time into configurations that defied description. forms that existed simultaneously in multiple dimensions. "We leave you now," she announced, "but not alone. The technology we've given you will help guide your development, but the path you take is yours to choose. Remember this moment, not as the day your fleet was defeated, but as the day your civilization began its journey toward true understanding." As the human vessels prepared to depart, Six stepped forward. "Wait, what if we need to contact you? What if, when you're ready," Chen interrupted with a knowing smile, "you'll know how to find us. The same way we found you, through the quantum resonance of consciousness itself." The human ships didn't so much disappear as transcend, shifting through dimensions in ways that even the enhanced meridian sensors couldn't fully track. But they left behind more than just transformed technology. They left behind a new vision of what was possible. In the silence that followed, Vexthor turned to his fellow officers. "Send word to the Council of Elders," he commanded, but his voice carried none of its former military authority. Instead, it held something new: wisdom. "Tell them humanity has given us not a defeat to avenge, but a destiny to embrace." As the transformed Meridian fleet began its journey home, the stars themselves seemed to shine with new meaning. They were no longer distant territories to be conquered, but gateways to understanding. And somewhere out there, humanity waited, not as conquerors or superiors, but as guides on a path that all conscious beings were destined to walk together. The age of empires was over. The age of understanding had begun.